Perfect. Callie, call the meeting in order. If you'll take roll call.
Peter Boyer, Mayor.
Present.
Stephen Clark, Council.
Present.
Tyler Martin, Council.
Excused.
Excused.
Sorry, I totally zoned out.
Tim Ficken, Council.
Present.
Dan Sabrowski, Council.
Present.
Everyone rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There we go.
There we go.
Back. Right on. It's good. I missed it. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Did you get that? Awesome. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would entertain a motion to approve the payables list for June 3rd, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would entertain a motion to approve the payables list for May 2025 as noted in the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to approve the second reading for ordinance number 2025-01, annual appropriation ordinance budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026.
Moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? I do have one small side note item that I would like to just say real quick. We're running out of time before the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So we may have to schedule on some off days if we can't get it done on the Tuesdays. So just a heads up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway,
We did do that last year.
we did have to do that last year, but at least we don't have to hold a special session.
True.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Awesome. That brings us to item number 7, which is, you didn't put her name on here.
Oh, you guys didn't get the updated ones. Erica Pickford.
Erica Bickford. Erica Bickford from the Department of Energy for Storage and Transportation is going to basically give us a brief, or I don't know how brief. She is going to give us a presentation on nuclear storage. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Perfect.
Works.
So
All right. Hi,
we're
everyone.
hi. We are here as you are the expert here, and we are going to yield the floor to you, and you can give your presentation. And if you would entertain questions from us afterwards, that'd be fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up my slides and hopefully this works seamlessly. We had a Windows update last night, so it's always a chance that things go awry. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Oh, well, first of all, thanks so much for the invitation to speak with you all tonight. Appreciate it. I'm Erica Bickford. I'm Director of the Office of Storage and Transportation and the Office of Spent Fuel and High-Level Waste Disposition at the U.S. Department of Energy, and I'm joining you from Washington, D.C. I understand you all had some questions on the safety of spent nuclear fuel storage and transportation, so I have a short presentation and very happy to take questions afterwards. All right. So starting with the basics, what is spent nuclear fuel? First key thing to understand is it is a solid. I know there's lots of Hollywood movies and cartoons, including Ninja Turtles, that I grew up watching, that would maybe portray radioactive material as a glowing green ooze. But when we're talking about spent nuclear fuel from nuclear power production, it is a solid. It is actually on your screen on the graphic on the left. It shows a couple of different things. One is the nuclear fuel pellets. So it's about the size of a jelly bean. And the pellets are made out of a uranium ceramic. So that's the actual nuclear fuel. And then those pellets are stacked up inside a metal tube, and that tube is called cladding. And many tubes are bundled together into what's called a fuel assembly. So that's the picture on the far left, and that's about a 16 by 16 grid of those tubes. That is a single fuel assembly. That fuel goes into a nuclear reactor, and pictured on the top right, the blue, shows what the inside of a nuclear reactor that's loaded with nuclear fuel. So this is fresh fuel when it goes into the reactor. Once it's inside the reactor is operated to produce fission, which creates heat, boils water, generates steam, turns a turbine, produces electricity. After the fuel has been in the reactor for a period of time, going up to 2 years at this point, it's no longer efficiently generating heat, and so it's considered spent. And so the spent fuel is moved out of the reactor and placed into storage. And then if you haven't seen one, pictured in the lower right is what a nuclear power plant looks like. On the right is the kind of classic from the Simpsons cooling tower, the hourglass-shaped concrete structure. In the middle, the concrete cylindrical building is the reactor building at this particular plant, but different plants have different looking reactor building. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about nuclear fuel and spent nuclear fuel. In the US, we have currently 94 operating commercial reactors. These are all light water reactors. So the fuel I'm showing you is called light water reactor fuel. All of the nuclear power plants in the US are light water reactors. Other countries use different types, notably Canada has something called a CANDU reactor, that stands for Canadian Deuterium. They have fuel that looks different than ours because it's a different design. But by and large, most of the nuclear power plants operating in the world today are light water reactors, including in the US. So we have reactors at 94 sites that are still operating, or 94 reactors at 54 nuclear power plant sites in 28 states. 20 plants have shut down, and about 95,000 metric tons of spent nuclear fuel has been produced to date. If all of the currently operating nuclear reactors continue operating throughout their likely extended lifetime, which is about 80 years, then we estimate that we'll eventually have about 180,000 metric tons of spent nuclear fuel. So we have the most. We have the most reactors in the US, and we have the most spent nuclear fuel. And that does not include any new reactors that we may build in the future. You can see on this map, most of the nuclear power plants are concentrated in the eastern US and Midwest, with a couple on the West Coast. And how it's stored. So when fuel comes out of the reactor, it goes into a fuel pool, and I have a picture of that next. And then it's stored in, after the fuel pools start to fill up, the fuel gets moved out into what's called dry cask storage. And so this shows a diagram of the fuel. Again, remember, it's a fuel pellet that is assembled into a fuel rod, and fuel rods are bundled together into a fuel assembly. And then the fuel assemblies are placed into, in this model, this is a canistered system. So there's a stainless steel canister that multiple fuel bundles are placed into, anywhere from like 20 to 35 about. And then that stainless steel canister is welded closed and placed inside a concrete and steel overpack. And that is stored outside. And that concrete and steel provides shielding, and the stainless steel canister contains all the spent nuclear fuel inside it. When we talk about transporting spent nuclear fuel, in this system, you take the canister outside of that concrete and steel overpack, and you place it in something called a transportation cask, which is a specially designed container for transporting spent nuclear fuel. The graphic on the right shows a diagram of what a transportation cask for spent nuclear fuel looks like. They're generally steel and lead to have lots of shielding for the radioactivity coming from the spent nuclear fuel. And that canister slides inside of that transportation cask. There are impact limiters that go on either end that kind of provide cushion for the cask in the event of an accident. And then in this case, this is loaded on top of a rail car. and there's some equipment attaching it to the rail car. There's a cradle in the middle that holds the cask onto the rail car. This model has end stops at either end to hold the cask in place. There's different designs that are used for different types of casks. Some of them have other attachment mechanisms, but this just shows one example of a common design. On this slide, I have some pictures of spent nuclear fuel in storage. So on the top left, when the nuclear fuel comes out of the reactor, it goes into a fuel pool. And this photo shows a fuel assembly either being loaded in or pulled out of a fuel pool. So it's a pool of water. And those assemblies go into that pool, and they typically stay in there for a period of about 5 years before they're moved into dry storage. It can be shorter, it can be longer. A lot of it just depends on sort of the operational needs of the nuclear power plants. When the fuel is moved into dry storage, it's placed into a canister. On the top middle photo, this is what a stainless steel canister. Inside is what's called a basket, which are basically slots for each fuel assembly to be slid into. So each of those squares inside that canister will hold a fuel assembly. And the fuel assemblies are about 12 to 14 feet long. So these are large containers. And then there's a couple different types of storage systems. So here on this screen, I show you 3 different types of canistered systems. So this is where you have that stainless steel canister loaded with assemblies of spent nuclear fuel. And then in the top right is what's called a vertical concrete cask system. So that canister goes inside that vertical concrete cask system, and it's stored above ground and outside. This particular storage pad is at the 3 Mile Island Nuclear Generating Station in Pennsylvania. There's another design in the lower left that is below grade storage. This location is at the San Onofre Nuclear Power Plant in Southern California. In this case, they built up, they filled in and made kind of a little hill. And then they built the storage system so that those canisters would go down into concrete overpacks, but the same idea with the canistered system. And then in the lower middle is what's called horizontal storage modules. So again, you have these concrete and steel bunkers essentially. And in this case, the canister is stored horizontally instead of vertically. And you just turn it on its side and slide it in and then put a cover plate on top of it. So those are the current types of storage systems that are used at nuclear power plants all around the country. I think a lot of the systems used today are these canistered systems. There were earlier on in spent fuel storage, which started in the 1980s, 1986 was when the first nuclear power plant started to load spent nuclear fuel into dry storage. Earlier systems were dual purpose systems, also known as bolted lid or bare fuel systems. And instead of having a separate canister and separate storage overpack with a separate transportation cask, it was kind of a all-in-one. You have one container that was made out of steel and lead, and you put the spent nuclear fuel in it. It could be stored in that container, and it can be transported in that container. Those types of systems are less commonly used today, generally probably because they're more expensive than the canistered systems. But I have a photo here on the lower right. These are those types of bolted lid or bare fuel systems from the early days of the dry storage technology. These are all out at the Idaho National Laboratory in eastern Idaho. And moving on to transportation of spent nuclear fuel. So this picture here on the left is a picture of spent nuclear fuel in transport in the US. This was a shipment that occurred around 2003 that went from the West Valley facility in New York, which was a one-time reprocessing facility that never really operated, but had some commercial spent nuclear fuel. So the Department of Energy got involved in the decommissioning of that site. And there was about 2 containers of spent nuclear fuel that they ended up shipping from New York out to the Idaho National Lab in eastern Idaho. And this is what it looked like in transport. You can see that was one of the bolted lid systems. And so it has impact limiters on either end. There are rods connecting the impact limiters at each end. the blue thing in the middle is the cradle holding it to the rail car.
It's a little different than that, but.
And is there a question?
No,
Nope, sorry, we're
No worries.
gossiping, or not gossiping, what do you call it? We're just
talking about the graph.
discussing stuff
Okay.
over here about your graphics.
Okay. So this was from an actual transport. So in the US, we do have experience transporting spent nuclear fuel. We haven't done it a lot at this scale. It's been done a handful of times with commercial spent nuclear fuel, so nuclear power spent nuclear fuel. The US Navy, of course, has nuclear powered submarines and aircraft carriers, and they've been transporting their own spent nuclear fuel for more than 65 years at this point. So the US does have quite a bit of experience with transportation of spent nuclear fuel overall, but hasn't at this time transported very much commercial spent nuclear fuel from nuclear power plants. Usually it's smaller research quantities, smaller containers. But in the future, when we have federal storage and disposal facilities, we expect to be transporting more regularly, and it'll look something like what you see on this screen. And in this image, this was, I believe, around Indiana or Illinois, when the state was doing a radiological inspection of the shipment as it went on its way. And so these packages that are used for transportation, whether they're the canistered systems or the type B or the bolted lid systems, typically have to meet a pretty high threshold for their design. So for the packages that my program is planning to use to transport commercial spent nuclear fuel, we'll be using transportation containers that are certified by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And the requirements for those packages, which are specifically in transportation parlance, are type B packages. And they have to be designed to withstand a number of accident conditions that represent sort of the types of forces that the cask could see in a transportation incident. So here the graphic on the right shows first it has to be able to survive an impact, which here is in a free drop onto in sort of its most damaging orientation where a corner of the cask hits first. Next is a puncture, so it falls on like a spike. Then a fully engulfing fire at 800 degrees Celsius or 1475 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. And then finally immersion in water. And a single package has to be able to survive all 4 of those first tests on the same package in order to meet those requirements. And so those tests are intended to represent sort of what's the worst type of transportation accident this package could see, which is, a collision, falls on a bar, there's a fire from some fuel source, and then it rolls off, a cliff into a river or something like that is the concept. And then still that container, that package would contain all of the radiological material. And then for spent nuclear fuel type B packages specifically, there's some additional water immersion tests that are required at more depth. So these are pretty much the most robust containers used to transport any material in the world. And these are international standards. So the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the U.S. Department of Transportation conform to the international standards for these types of packages. So where spent nuclear fuel is transported around the world, whether it's France or the UK or Japan or somewhere else, they're using the same type of packages that meet the same standards. I did want to highlight for you that the Department of Energy, in addition to preparing, transportation and, siting facilities for storage and eventual disposal of this material, we do also do some research on the safety of spent nuclear fuel storage. And we have one project I wanted to share that's looking at the safety of what's called high burnup spent nuclear fuel in storage that will also involve some transportation. So higher burnup spent nuclear fuel, that just means that the fuel stays in the reactor longer to produce more electricity than earlier eras in the nuclear industry. So today, pretty much all of the spent nuclear fuel is considered higher burnup. And in order to put this fuel into storage, data is needed to provide to the regulator, demonstrating that the fuel condition conforms with the package that you're placing it in, that the fuel is not going to have any breakdown in it. It's going to stay intact. And so starting in 2013, the department collaborated with the nuclear industry through the Electric Power Research Institute. That's the entity that the nuclear power plant industry uses to conduct their research, to load a cask of spent nuclear fuel at the Northampton Nuclear Power Plant in Virginia. It has a specially designed lid that allows instrumentation to be inside the cask, and it's had temperature inside the cask monitored since it was loaded in 2017. And so it has about 9 years of data been collected so far, and the data collected so far supports the safety of the spent nuclear fuel. There were some concerns that the temperatures inside the cask could get above a certain point that could cause the fuel to break down. Those temperatures were never observed in the measurements that we have. So that's great news for future storage of spent nuclear fuel by the Department of Energy and current storage of spent nuclear fuel by nuclear power plants around the country. But to close out this research project, we need to open the cask up, take some of the fuel rods out, and take a closer look at them. And you can't do that at a nuclear power plant. They don't have the right facilities for that, but you can do it at the Department of Energy's national labs. So we're going to be transporting this cask of spent nuclear fuel from Virginia to a DOE national lab to continue that research and development on it. And we announced just about a month ago, the department reached an agreement with the state of Idaho to allow that cask of spent nuclear fuel to be transported to the Idaho National Lab. And that transport is planned to happen in 2027. And we'll be using the Department of Energy's Atlas rail car, which is pictured here on the right, to do that transport. This is a specially designed rail car specifically for transporting spent nuclear fuel and high-level radioactive waste. Pictured here is the rail car on its final test run. It took about 10 years and $30 million to develop this rail car and qualify it to the Association of American Railroads standard for rail cars used to transport radioactive material. It's very similar to the design that the US Navy uses for their spent nuclear fuel transport. Pictured on this cask right now, that's not a spent nuclear fuel cask, that's test weights. It has not transported spent nuclear fuel yet. The first shipment of spent nuclear fuel it does will be in that 2027, but to do the testing of the rail car and qualify it, we used weights that simulate the weight of a package of spent nuclear fuel. And so I wanted to share this with you all because the expected transportation route of this shipment of spent nuclear fuel is likely to go through southern Wyoming. So it'll be coming to your neck of the woods. And I wanted to make you aware of this and offer to provide additional information as needed. The Department of Energy is coordinating with states and tribes along the transportation route, including with staff from the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security to coordinate technical assistance, to offer emergency response training, and other information for the shipment. And for this particular cask on the right-hand side of your screen, I just have a rendering of what that cask will look like in transport. It does have those end stops at the end. It has impact limiters. It has an additional personnel barrier that's going across the middle and over the top. And that will be loaded on a rail car. And it weighs about 180 tons. And so that's why we'll be transporting by rail, because that's a weight that's very doable by rail, but pretty heavy to move across the country by road. And then I just wanted to wrap up with some information resources. And I did share my slides as well, so you can get a copy of them. For additional information on storage and transportation of spent nuclear fuel, I included links to these two Nuclear Regulatory Commission booklets that are great information resources. They're pretty short, about 10 to 15 pages, and have lots of good pictures in them. If you want to take a deeper dive, my office has done a historical review of the safety record of transporting spent nuclear fuel in the US and internationally. That's about a 100-page report, so that's more detailed and technical. You can find that report on our Curie website that's linked here. You can find more reports for our program and fact sheets, as well as project information, including on that high burnup research cask shipment. We have a project page there listed. So I will leave that there and invite any questions you have.
Wow. Thank you. Erica, those links, can you send those over to our town clerk and we can post that on the website?
Yes.
Perfect. That would be awesome if you could. That way people can look and see and read for themselves and get acquainted with all the information.
Yeah, absolutely. I sent them to Callista.
Okay, perfect. You already
That's
got
the
them.
right person.
I haven't seen them yet, but I'm sure.
Okay,
I sent them right
perfect.
before the meeting, so you might not have seen them.
Right on. You guys are ahead of me then, so that's awesome. Does council have any questions?
I have nothing intelligent to ask this. I would like to read more of what she sent over, but that's great information. Thank you. Yeah. How often are you seeing transportation of nuclear waste right now? You mentioned commercial.
Sure. So when we say nuclear waste is a little bit of a tricky term just because it's kind of used more generally. In the field, we refer to more specifically low-level waste, sometimes intermediate level waste or high level waste. So there's shipments of low level waste going on all the time, from decommissioning nuclear power plants, Department of Energy's Office of Environmental Management, decommissioning facilities around the country from the Cold War era and the Manhattan Project era, and things like that. In terms of spent nuclear fuel or the higher level, what would be kind of fall under the umbrella of higher level radioactive waste, that's less common. It's really occurring in those research quantities, which is, sometimes one assembly or a couple of fuel pins. For our program, we last transported spent nuclear fuel as part of that high burn up research CAS project when the fuel was initially loaded back in 2017. There are research reactors at universities around the country that periodically need to move the spent nuclear fuel out of their fuel pools. Some of those shipments are going to be starting up again soon. And that fuel goes to Idaho National Lab for the most part. Some of it has gone to the Savannah River site down in South Carolina. So for the research reactors and commercial reactors, occasionally, for the Navy's shipments of spent nuclear fuel, at least annually and sometimes many times a year. It kind of depends on what their cycle of decommissioning or refueling submarines and aircraft carriers is.
Thank you.
Cool. I actually do. I have a question, and maybe you may not have the answer to this, and that's okay. I suppose you probably do. You seem like you're incredibly intelligent, so smarter than me at least.
Oh no, now you're putting me on the spot.
But we had multiple residents ask about what happens to bar none if, well, this is kind of a multi-part question. What happens if one of these casks actually does have a leak? What is the danger to our town? So just to give you an idea, where they're going to be storing this fuel is roughly about 3/4 of a mile to a mile north of town.
Okay.
And so what danger would it present? Let's say one of these casks, I don't know, a meteor hits it and breaks it open, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a wild theory there, but whatever. Just it breaks open. What is the danger to bar none?
So that's really going to depend on what is inside it. But I will say that there has never been a transportation incident involving spent nuclear fuel that caused injury or harm due to the radiological nature. None of these packages have ever been breached in accidents. So if you got hit with a meteorite, I think the danger is probably more from the meteorite than the package of spent nuclear fuel.
Okay,
But
maybe that was
again,
a bad
it
example.
depends on the specifics of what's inside it.
You warned her.
And what's there. And we do have lots of plans in place. The department has lots of emergency response capabilities through the National Response Framework. There is a nuclear and radiological annex to it that has a whole host of federal response capabilities for radiological incidents. So in the very unlikely event that there was some kind of transportation incident or meteorite or what have you that caused a release of radioactive material, there would be a lot of federal resources brought to bear to contain the situation and remediate it the best way possible, depending on the circumstances.
You're going to make me famous or infamous for my meteorite comment.
Yeah, that is not the first time I've had a question about a meteorite, believe it or not.
Well, I was just trying to think of something that can actually breach one of these. And it's just a kind of a joke aside. But so I guess my other question is I think a lot of people, maybe they haven't stated it. I don't know how to say that, but they haven't stated it real clearly. But I think a lot of people are afraid that, let's say something bad does happen and there is a nuclear leak, and I think they're afraid that the whole town's going to have to be evacuated.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, is that a real possibility?
Dead zone.
Like, it become like a dead zone, like Chernobyl. I think that's what a lot of people think about is like Chernobyl. I know Chernobyl was a really terrible accident, and you
Yeah.
have to really amp up the danger level to even get close to that. So, I mean, I know that's kind of maybe out of your wheelhouse, but I mean, I'm just trying to spitball ideas here and questions.
Does she
Yeah,
know
the
this
only
goes
nuclear
to
accidents-
microreactors?
Yeah, the only
Double
nuclear
display.
accidents I'm aware of that involved any kind of, evacuation like that was Chernobyl, as you mentioned, and that was a very particular reactor design that did not have a containment building. And none of the reactors currently operating in the US have that design. It was a little bit of a budget reactor design, and there's a reason the US and other countries design different reactors that have containment. So
Right.
that kind of thing wouldn't occur. And then also the Fukushima tsunami and the impacts on the Fukushima Daiichi reactor, which did result in radioactive contamination. And they did have to evacuate the town. Those, I'd say, are both fairly unprecedented events. So it would be very unlikely to have something like that happen in the US, in part because of the safety record that we have with the nuclear industry and the regulatory structure.
Awesome. I don't, do you have anything? I'm just trying to kind of spitball some questions here since I have an expert, and in your opinion, how safe is nuclear storage? Like, one being really, really safe, like super safe, and 10 being, dangerous, as in people are going to die from it. Yeah. Threat to life.
In the US, under the current regulatory structure, I'd say it's at a 1. We have spent nuclear fuel stored all around the country at more than 74 sites. And, it's in pools, it's in dry storage, and there's never been a serious safety issue. I've walked on pads where spent nuclear fuel is stored. I stood next to them. I've had my photo taken. I've touched them. Never, there are safety precautions. Some, at some of these sites I've been to, you have a dosimeter measuring the radiological dose that you get. And at the end, it's 0.002 or something very low. So there are, because there are all these safety measures in place, it is very safe in the US.
Okay.
And those places you've been to, is that spent fuel from like a reactor?
Yeah,
facility?
that's all
So-
spent fuel. That's all nuclear power plants. So I've been to probably about 22 nuclear power plant sites that have either operating or shut down that have spent nuclear fuel stored outside, and walked on several of them. I actually had a photo of several of us with our hands on the cast, but it just didn't fit in the slides I had for this presentation. But maybe
So
I'll roll that out next time.
How does that fuel compare to fuel from this project that is looking at our neighboring area of micro reactors in portable generators, the spent fuel from those? How does that spent fuel compare to, say, the spent fuel from an actual nuclear power plant? Is it
So-
apples to apples and just the quantitative amount is different? Or you spoke earlier about low level, mid level, high level?
Yeah,
spent
it would still
fuel.
be considered high level. Pretty much any material that's being used to power a nuclear reactor would be considered high level nuclear material. I don't know the details of the project. I understand it's Radiant, and they plan to manufacture microreactors and do some refueling there. I don't know the detailed specifics of the type of fuel that they plan to use. A lot of the microreactors I'm aware of plan to use something called TRISO fuel, which is like a round particle. So instead of looking like the fuel rods and assemblies that I showed you, it's the TRISO fuel can be in more of a ball with the fuel in the middle and then graphite around it. And it's generally a very stable form of fuel, because microreactors are designed for transport. In order to be able to transport them with the fuel inside, you need the fuel to be very stable during transport. So there's a number of different designs out there. The Department of Defense has a microreactor project called Project Pele, that's using TRISO fuel. Westinghouse and other companies, many companies right now have designs for microreactors, and the majority of them that I'm aware of are using something called TRISO fuel. Our office, one of my staff has led a group of technical experts to look into some of these advanced reactor or microreactor fuels to understand what the spent fuel is going to look like and how that will fit into our planned system of storage, transportation, and disposal. And right now for the TRISO fuels from microreactors, there's no safety issue with storage and transportation. The question that's a little bit come up is just volume, because the structure of the fuel that has generally graphite on the outside. Again, I don't know if that's specific to the radiant fuel, but some of the TRISO fuels have sort of a graphite layer around them that just creates a larger volume of fuel. And we might want to look at whether we remove the graphite before we dispose of it to reduce the volume. But in terms of, that's not a safety issue, that's more of an operations and engineering issue. So from a safety perspective, we specifically looked at the safety of storage and transportation, and we have no issues on the safety of storing and transporting that fuel.
Cool. I have one last question, and then I think I'm done. So if Radiant, let's say Radiant gets 10 years into their operation, and for whatever reason they go bankrupt, and I know that they're supposed to be bonded and insured so that, in case of that happening, that the town is still taken care of, and the local, they still take care of their part of the deal of the spent fuel. But what happens over the long term? Who takes control of that radioactive waste, and what will happen with it?
Sure. So under the Nuclear Waste Policy Act, that was passed in 1982 and subsequently amended, commercial reactors are required to enter into a contract with the Department of Energy for the department to accept their spent nuclear fuel for disposal. So in the event, and I'm not a lawyer, and, manufacturing microreactors is something that probably wasn't conceived of in the Nuclear Waste Policy Act of 1982 framework. So there's probably some new details to be worked out. But if there is a contract with the department for the department to take ownership and disposal of that spent nuclear fuel, then assuming, nothing unforeseen is part of that situation, then my expectation would be that the department would fulfill the terms under the contract, and take ownership of that material and eventually dispose of it.
Where would you dispose of it at?
Oh, that's a fun question. So the plan for our program, and my colleague Marla Morales is on this call. She's leading both our siting and our disposal activities. We're currently working right now to site a storage facility to allow the government to begin accepting the spent nuclear fuel, and then plan to subsequently follow that with siting a location for a deep geologic repository. You might be aware that there was a previous Yucca Mountain project in Nevada that was originally selected to be the site for final disposal of spent nuclear fuel. For various reasons, that site has been determined to be unworkable. And so we would like to go find another location where a final disposal facility could be built and operated. And that's where spent nuclear fuel from nuclear power plants, as well as from the Navy's spent nuclear fuel and high-level waste from other defense-related activities would all be disposed of potentially. So there is no disposal facility currently, but under the Nuclear Waste Policy Act, the Department of Energy has the obligation to site and manage that disposal facility, and we're very eager to do that.
Right. And so, currently it would just stay on site, I suppose?
Yes,
Okay.
It would stay on site. We are siting a storage facility that we hope to bring online in the next decade or so. And so it's possible that some of the fuel from around the country could be relocated to that storage facility until a disposal facility is available. But again, that depends on a number of factors, because there are contracts in place that kind of set the order of operations and what fuel moves when.
Awesome. Cool. I don't think I have anything else. I'm pretty questioned out. Anything from you, gentlemen?
You're good.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to present to the council and to the community. We really appreciate the time and energy you put into this and to come and kind of educate us and help us, you know, learn about the whole process of spent fuel. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Thanks so much for the invitation. Thanks for your questions. This was all pretty high level. So if more questions come up down the road, or you want to hear more about Marla's work in siting and disposal, you know, happy to come back and answer more questions.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Right on. Well, moving on. Mr. Holscher.
Mayor, Council, you have my report. It was a very brief report this time, so that's pretty much it, unless there's any questions.
The only question I have is that the property tax. You got a hold of him? Or
I
did you?
did get a hold of him. I didn't really get any answers though, because when I talked to him, the person I needed to talk to was out of the office.
That's right.
So they should be back, and I need to follow up on that.
Okay, well, right on. Like, that's, yeah, that's,
You
I remember
did.
that's where we were at, because I was gonna contact that person too, and I remember they were out of the office until, I don't even remember when though.
Did I read something? Did you confirm they're not? That we shouldn't see any tax taken out this year?
We shouldn't see any for this tax year.
Okay.
We should not. That doesn't mean you won't, but we should not.
Okay.
And they've actually confirmed that. They understand that. So we're only dealing with 2024, and because the county recognized Wardwell's dissolution in November, the way they're looking at it would be, you know, about 6 weeks.
Reimburse possible.
Well, certainly of error anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything for Pat? Nope. Okay, Pat, you are free. You can't leave, but you're free.
Hmm.
Ray,
Mr. Mayor,
you have the floor, man.
thank you, sir. In my attempt to one-up Pat yet again, I did not even have a report for you.
Nice.
It's
I was looking at here and I was like, what?
it's been pretty slow actually the last couple of weeks. Not much happening. Just talked to Dustin. I've been in contact with the playground supplier. They're the Wayne and Wind has delayed them in their Casper and Cheyenne projects. So when I talked to him last week, he was hopeful that they would be done with their projects by the end of last week. But given that it rained most of last week, I'm going to guess that they did not finish those. So we should be seeing them. We are the next one on their list. So they won't leave this area until they're done with bar none.
Okay.
So that's really the only update besides working with Callie on some water sewer system things, and then trying to figure out localized water pressure issues. So otherwise it's been
Been quiet.
quiet where the wood is, but
Here we go.
There you go.
Perfect.
I have for you.
Right on. Well, that's easy. That's you definitely are one-upping, Pat. Any questions for Ray? No? All right. That was easy enough. Dustin, you're up, man.
Council, you have my report. But just one thing to add, just informational. 3 new water taps were installed yesterday and today into our water system off of Midway Road, which is actually in Mills, down on the southern border. So we have 3 additional water taps that have been installed. But other than that, I'll entertain questions. At my office. Nothing more to add.
I don't really have any. We've can't think of anything anyway. We're just waiting on that splash pad and the playground equipment. So
So my splash pad is functional. It's operational. We've been checking it, so
right on.
it's ready to go.
Perfect. Go ahead, man.
The crack seal repair that they do on my street, we've got cracks 1 inch wide, you know. How much does that tar need to fill that crack to prevent it from getting worse? Does it need to fill it all the way up?
Like more of a great question.
No, it doesn't need to go all the way up. It depends on how they fill the crack. If they route out the crack, like they take a literal router and route out the crack and blow out the debris, they generally try to leave it just a little bit low.
Definitely didn't do that.
Did you blow it out with a leaf blower?
They blew it with a leaf blower and then they had the hose and filled it and they had the little, trowel thing.
Yeah.
I only asked because I was looking at it and I'm like, some of them don't look filled enough, but I don't know for sure. So
Doctors, Asphalt Doctors was the company. It came.
from the looks of it, you could get water down in there, it could freeze again and push it open more. So. Yeah, there you go.
So if they do it that way, they generally overfill so that they don't run into a problem like that. So there's the two methods where they route it out, blow it out, and then try to fill it so it's flat or just a little bit below, or there's the type that we generally see here. Like the highway department does the previous method that I talked about for traffic. It's better. It's a lot easier for that because car tires, when it gets hot, if it's sitting on the surface, they can pull it out of the crack. Right. So they generally try to leave it at the surface or below, but generally what we see is kind of the method where they just do a real wide.
Yeah, it's like 4 inches outside on the asphalt and then it goes into the crack. And so anyway, I just wonder, I just don't want to pay for it to be done and have it need to be redone or not do what it needs to.
I assume there's more to do. They're gonna
Oh, yes. Yeah, there was.
if you get a chance, I wonder if you shouldn't spot check them, right?
Yeah.
Just see what the technique they're using, make sure they're not cutting.
Right in front of my house on Lakota, where I was looking to do.
Did all talk about
They did all
Coordinate with, when you know they're gonna do some more, like right now.
Yeah, we can come and check it out. And if there's low spots, it does, I mean, it's hard.
You
Add more.
know better than them when you're out there looking at it while they're working on
We go in the full suit and tie.
it. Yeah.
A really shiny white hard hat.
Make them really mad.
Yes.
I need you to
Been
be
hard hat.
fired on. Great.
Yeah.
Be one more.
Badge.
Yeah.
So that's my only question.
So you make friends with contractors.
Yeah.
We'll check it out.
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect timing, right?
Unless anybody else has questions.
Any other questions for Dustin? No? All right. Fire department.
Mayor, council, you have Sonny's report. I'm just here to answer any questions you guys might have.
18 personnel, everybody's getting along good?
So far.
Good.
Got a really good vibe going. Everybody's working well together.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really have anything. Seems pretty standard operating procedure.
We gotten things ready to sell off the surplus equipment yet?
Actually, we are working on that. Myself and Matt Potter are actually working on getting that stuff listed,
Okay.
pulling out actual numbers on what values are, getting them listed.
Cool. Any questions for
32:6.
our department? No? All right. Office staff report. Kelly, anything of?
Yeah, 2 staff members in the last meetings, one part-time. And Tiffany and I will be attending the WAM summer conference in Tabs too.
I see 6 permits for roofs. Does that mean they're not going to Casper anymore? Beautiful. That's good to see.
Good.
And I could
Right on. Okay, well, cool. Any questions for Kelly?
go out to them.
Right on. All right. Well, moving on, we'll go into petitions and public comment. I want to just go over we had to come up with some rules and for the quorum of public comment because we've kind of been drifting off and not exactly staying on task with our public comments. A lot of debate going on, a lot of multiple times coming up to the podium. And so we kind of need to square things up a little bit, get it right. Actually, before public comment, Mrs. Wharton
I'm
from,
just gonna say, do we have?
do we have anything for Parks and Rec?
I usually talk the second meeting of the month.
Okay, I didn't know if you did or if you wanted to say.
You last time, so we felt that. Okay.
Those darn kids.
Department about the parade route, I kind of looked up the map and looked for that up. Garage tells us, garage tell we have almost 50 households participating, so
Awesome.
it's
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you. All right, so on to public comment. That everyone should have one in their council packet. I'll just go over it real quick. It says commenters must state their name and residency for the record, street and city. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Each person, only one person can speak at a time. The comments need to be directed to the mayor and council, not to other members of the public, because if you want to debate or have a conversation or talk to somebody, you can go out in the hallway and do that so we don't interrupt the meeting. We need to be respectful, free from slander, threats, inflammatory statements, personal attacks, profanity, shouting, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Speakers who fail to comply will be ruled out of order and may forfeit their right to continue speaking. Council is going to save their questions until the end, unless, you know, it's absolutely pertinent to the issue. And we're not obligated to respond to the comments. If multiple individuals are representing the same viewpoint, they are encouraged to designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition and maximize efficiency. It doesn't mean we don't want to hear everyone's voice. It just means that if everybody here is to say the same thing, then you can elect somebody to come up and represent the body of what everyone wants to say. And anyone who disrupts a meeting may be asked to leave in accordance with the applicable rules or ordinances. And then at the very bottom, we welcome all attendees and value the input of every individual. And public comment is a vital part of our meetings, and we encourage respectful participation to promote civil discourse and maintain a productive environment. Decorum rules are in place. All viewpoints are welcome and should be shared in a courteous and orderly manner. We can disagree without being disagreeable. So with that, we'll open up for public comments. If anyone would like to speak to the council, beginning now.
Venus Childress, Mandan Trail, Vernon. Last week I was listening to one of the Joint Minerals Committee meetings, and I believe the gentleman I was listening to was from the Nuclear
Regulatory Commission.
Yeah, those guys. I think that's who it was. Either way, I'm pretty sure it was from the federal government. And one of the things he was talking about was the safety requirements for any nuclear facility. And the stuff he was talking about, this had never even occurred to me, but basically safety to, prevent any basically terrorists.
Oh, like
trying to
security?
steal uranium or whatever else they might want from the facility. Yeah, never even occurred to me. So by having that facility, I think you said when you were talking to Erica, that the facility is like less than a mile away from our homes. So terrorists basically, right outside our homes. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but obviously if the federal government thinks it's an issue that we need to be protected from, it's a possibility. Speaking of Yucca Mountain, one of the things that I noticed in reading Nevada's statement about why Yucca Mountain is not an appropriate place was they said that the proximity to Las Vegas, which is only 90 miles away. So 90 miles away is too close, but a mile or less isn't. So I have a problem with that. just a couple examples of why I am totally against this facility being built right here. And I am like sorely disappointed to read that y'all have already sent a letter of support to the Wyoming Business Council, because in my opinion, the majority of this community is not supportive of it.
Can I just say one thing real quick? If you look on the council business at item B, it's for discussion. It's not been
It
sent.
hasn't been sent.
No.
So anyway, continue on. I don't want to
It
interrupt.
hasn't been sent.
Nope.
Okay, well, great. So again, in my opinion, I don't think the majority of people that even know about it are for it. And I think there's a huge number of people in Barnett and just within Return County, which I think we need to take everyone's thoughts into this. The only people I've talked to that know about it are people that I'm familiar with in some political groups that I hang around with, I'll say. I talk to anybody else that isn't in one of these groups, they know nothing. They've not heard of it. So it's my comment. Oh, one more thing on the rules for comments. I get why you only want maybe one or two people to come up and say basically the same thing. But how are you gonna know how many people are really for or against whatever we're talking about? If there's only one or two.
That's valid. That's valid.
Good point.
That's a good point, actually. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought the same thing when he was saying it.
Okay,
It's easy enough that we can change it. So,
well, yeah,
so
thank you.
any other petitions or public comment?
Dan Willis, Dakota Trail. What I've heard this lady speak about, sounds like they don't have a lot of over road testing done for this transportation. A lot of safety, all off one test. That does not sound safe. I think she answered the question about, possibly in 10 years, we'd have a federal facility. We'll be having that stuff flowing in and out of here for 10 years. So if something happens in the interim, we are stuck, absolutely stuck. One thing I haven't heard answered is the PEL levels of radiation that's acceptable to the federal government outside of any containment. What's that distance? What's the time? What's the safe distances? Has never been answered. When I've asked those questions, they get dodged. And the 250 jobs Radiant's proposing, welding, entry-level jobs, those are already readily available in this community. So if that's a selling point, that's a null point. There's too many unknowns at this time, and I would respectfully request we do not submit any letter of support. I request a letter in opposition, which could potentially leave us or none, at least an avenue for legal recourse. If we support this, we will be up Hoop Creek. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other petitions or public comment?
Michael Newquist, Council Rock Street, bar none. I concur with everything that these two citizens just spoke of. I have more to add to that for Elka Mountain Valley, right from Nevada's own website, government website. The people will not allow it because it's dropping their businesses. Over 100,000 shipments. And even if they take everything and open it today, it's full. There is no more room for it. We're going to be stuck with this stuff, guys. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And luckily, our state constitution got it right back in the 90s. Wyoming's not allowed to have it stored anywhere here. Let's not change that. This is all a moot point. Guys, it's already against state law. And if you guys send that letter, that's going to help support it. The town's against it. We don't want it. And it's going to shame me if you guys send that through, that I voted for all you guys. That's a mistake I'll never make again. The citizenry does not want this. The only people that benefit from this are the McMurrays and Radiant. It does not exist. These taxes, no good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other petitions or public comment? It's good to see you, Mike. I missed you.
Been a little while.
Mr. Anonymous from Geraldton. Apologize for not being here. I had a death in the family.
I'm sorry to hear that.
My trucks died.
Oh,
Sorry. Really sorry to hear that.
I am really sorry I said sorry now.
My question today is, what's going on with our paint truck? Are we painting stripes yet? Paid a lot of money.
You look stuck.
Paid a lot of money for that truck. Where is it?
Did it end up getting?
Okay, never mind.
Hang on.
Dustin? Yeah, no,
Want me to answer, sir?
yeah, go ahead, man. Go.
The paint truck is in our possession. It's in the garage. Just operational issues has not allowed us to actually get out and spray paint on the road yet. It is on the agenda. It is planned.
But it's broken?
I don't believe it's broken.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll get out there.
There's a little more to it.
That's the plan. So I mean, to be frank with you, none of us on the crew have a lot of expert knowledge in the operation of that particular truck. And so it's a learning, it's a learning curve.
Buying this truck that we were gonna have training on.
And that was told to you, but it was not told to you by me. We did not receive any training on that truck.
If you remember right in the middle of all this, Mike, that we had kind of a turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we kind of did.
so I mean, I'm not asking for a mulligan on this one. What I'm saying is that we're trying to play catch up.
Right.
And so, a little bit of patience and we'll get the streets painted.
So we'll have a trainer come in and train you guys up to get this $100,000 truck out on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Dustin, yes, say yes.
Oh. And so my intention is to make some contacts with YDOT. There is people at YDOT who are willing to come out and show us and share their expertise with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, John. Your condolences for my truck.
Sure, you're welcome. Anyway,
They're
so
gonna-
just to help Dustin out, because he's obviously
I get it.
getting into the role.
Get it.
We are going to get people out. We're going to get them trained and we're going to get it painted.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Is there gonna be a funeral, Mike?
That's already buried.
At least a wake.
Any other petitions or public comment?
Good evening, Leanne Newclass, Castle Rock Street. So I'm looking at this letter that's been drafted for the Business Ready Community Grant Program. I have to say I'm pretty disappointed with some of the lines in here about our strong and enthusiastic support for the Business Ready community. I don't have enthusiasm or support. Being a host community for this project. We've been very generous hosts to Radiant. That's an understatement. We've had them here in our town halls and, it's all been great information that we've been given, but as far as welcoming their presence in our community, I think there's a fair amount of us that have been vocal that we don't welcome their presence in our community in any way, shape, or form. I would respectfully request that we do not support this project and that we do not give this letter. I wouldn't be behind it. And the town hall that Representative Allman hosted last Thursday, there was an overwhelming sentiment against Radiant, and I would just like to remind the council of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't write.
Oh, yeah, I guess I should, just for, this is the letter right here, for reference, we did not write this. This was up for our approval. It was given to us by Advanced Casper, just so everyone knows. As a reference point. Anyway, any further petitions or public comment?
Melissa, Lakota as well. I just wanted to add that the town hall meeting, I don't believe any of you were there, that everyone's kind of been talking about. I just want to clarify and give some positives. Advanced Casper, I worked closely with in the past. They're a great organization. I think the manufacturing process, overwhelmingly, what I heard from our town was that's not the problem. We want to welcome additional revenues for Casper, for the town of Barnet. The biggest issue is there's not enough answers around the transportation and the storage pieces. So to give our recommendation at this time, I think would be premature. We don't have enough information. And so again, I would mirror what everyone's saying and that should not approve this letter as of yet. But I also want to, have some optimism that it's just not right now. I think we need more answers. I think Radiant needs to be able to provide those before, as a body, as a community, we can say, yeah, absolutely, this is something we're going to support. I don't think we have enough information. And to be fair, it sounds like this is a prototype. Radiant doesn't have the information. But why should we be the guinea pigs? So I would just leave you with that.
Okay, not as a rebuttal, I just for information purposes, right? So I know that in the lady who spoke, Erica, she said that they had only transported one. So that's what Department of Energy has done. Commercial nuclear waste is transported all the time. Just so we're verifying that.
She clarified the high level. The
right
stuff is like the
research.
Small. So that was what she was speaking.
The military does it on a very regular basis though. So there is a high record of successful transport.
Correct.
But the prototype that Radiant is proposing is not something, I do not have energy. My background's all finance.
Right.
Banker, I'm a bank examiner, so I don't know anything about energy. I will tell you at the town hall, there was a lot of energy wise people that came to that, and they were able to ask very intelligent questions that Radiant could not answer. So I would encourage the town councils. I am going to record the next town hall that we didn't have a recording. I would highly encourage that you guys at least have some representation at those meetings, because the problem with energy workers is they work a lot. And so being able to come to these things is very, very difficult. And especially when we don't have the technology available to share with these people because they're out working.
So are you referencing the Bill Element, Representative Elements that we were there?
Both of us were.
I was actually handing the mic around.
See you. So
yeah, we were both there.
Okay, but there was a lot of great questions, and again, I think the manufacturing process is being supported. It is truly the biggest concern I heard overwhelmingly, besides maybe one person and the people that represented Radiant, was the transportation and the storage, and it being stored here really indefinitely. We really do not have an answer to that question.
Right. I think we all heard the lady, what Erica said is that, until they've got until they have a mass storage facility like Yucca Mountain, wherever that is, they have to store it on site. And so that was specifically why I asked that question, is so that everyone would hear that. And unfortunately, that is the case. Like Yucca Mountain was, and I could go into the politics of it, but I won't bore you with that. But Yucca Mountain was a really viable place to put it, all that nuclear waste. And it got shut down, not really because of location, but because of politics. And anyway, I won't bore you with the details, but it's typical politics that a good idea gets shut down by people that want money and power. Anyway, I digress. Thanks.
No, absolutely. I would encourage you. I think it's too premature to approve that.
Okay, thank you. Any other petitions or public comment? Going once.
I think I remember at the very, very first town hall meeting Radiant had, I think there's DOT regulation for transport. And I think that kind of like the transport that she was talking about for the rail, the CASA, how they, I think there was testing and stuff that they have to do for those generators to be able to get shipped on the road. And there was DOT regulation for those. And I remember them saying also they're not switched on. Like there's something internal in that reactor that it's not active when it's being shipped. It gets activated once it's on site. Yes. Now on the way back, the spent fuel, yes. But the way that they're built, because I remember them talking about like 4-inch thick stainless steel canisters with lead liner and everything, that they have to be able to withstand an accident, getting hit by a train, all these other things to keep that intact. And then the facility where they pull the spent fuel out is a completely separate building that is highly, highly secure. Double entry, double exit, that kind of stuff that they then pull the spent fuel out to put in the casks and whatnot.
Right.
I just remembering them talking about that a little bit.
Right on. Thank you. Any other petitions or public comment? Going once, going twice, sold to the highest bidder. I want to thank everyone. I know that maybe we're usually with our public comments, we're a little more free. We free gun it a little bit more, but with the amount of people getting up to speak and with, kind of the debate floor that it became, we want to hear everybody's voice. And so having a little more regimented public comment allows everyone who wants to speak to be able to come up and speak. And so that's why we're doing this now. Because it used to be, well, Mike knows this, it used to be a lot more free gun. People were in the seats and they would just say what they wanted to. But because of the way things are now, we have to tighten up our shot group. So it is what it is. But anyway, thank you everyone for your comments, and it definitely taken into account.
We appreciate that they're commenting.
Yep, and we do appreciate your participation. Steve Kurtz, are you here? Yes, sir. There you are. Perfect.
Matt, I'm a retired city planning consultant. I've never said anything in less than 5 minutes in my life.
Oh, perfect.
Sorry. I was Mills planner for 30 years. I did work on your community development plan years ago.
Okay.
Thank you.
Scott?
So I have it written out.
Was it with Scott?
Yes, I worked with Scott. Yeah. So I'm the vice president of Casper Area Transportation Coalition.
Thanks, Steve.
Board. I got two of them if you want.
They're two different.
They're different.
Oh, it's two. Okay, I got you.
Two different ones.
Gotcha.
With me tonight is Deanna Fry. She's the secretary. We would have brought Lou, the president, but he's pretty much tied to his oxygen supply. So, we provided the bus service in Casper area from 1982 to 2021 when the city took over. We have assets in the amount of, we started out with 500,000 plus 200,000 in our foundation. We have since then made grants of $25,000 or half of vehicles for 19 vehicles. $428,000 in total grants to social service agencies, counseling center, unaccompanied students, community action, Boys and Girls Club, library, Wyoming 211, Kind Grounds, Outreach 2, Meals on Wheels, YMCA, Seton House, St. Anthony's. St. Anthony's got a used school bus for $1,000 from the Washington School District. We gave $22,000 to put in seatbelts for students. You don't have to have seatbelts in a school bus. So what we're here to do is, I don't know if you're really interested, but we'll still say it. It's this proposal there on the first one. You've been giving out grants to a lot of people. You were a client of Nancy. I don't know how often the city comes up here anymore. But we did Tyler and I on occasion. It was pretty tough to get out here, but we did. So we'd be interested in offering you a grant or two for $25,000 each for a couple of vans. You can get used vans for $25,000. Very expensive now. So that you could have a transportation system. Only way this would probably work would be electric drivers. You have an organization, social organization in town, something like that, where people could volunteer to drive, maybe do a few rides a day within Barnett, or maybe take some folks into Casper. We'd be glad to work with you on those grants. The more expensive part is the operations, obviously, but there are many small transportation systems around the country that have volunteer drivers. We would train your drivers for you. We'd have a national caliber trainer who trains for YDOT, all of the transit agencies in the state. Train your drivers. You'd have to make sure that they're qualified. But this is just an offer. Maybe there's some other uses. We would prefer that you don't haul manure to the parks in the vans. But all people, maybe you could use it for running back into town. Town is different, rather than sending something. Just our proposal. We have plenty of money in it.
Well, so if we needed drivers, right? You're saying that, you said that you could help with maybe getting volunteers or something like that, or training people. Is that what you're?
Train drivers. I would think that you'd want to recruit people from Barnett.
Right.
Their neighbors, Do you get Meals on Wheels?
Do we? Yeah, I think we do. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Meals on Wheels they give a fellow that works in the Midwest the meals, and he takes them in the Midwest and they deliver them in town. I don't know if Meals on Wheels, you could send one of your vans down, pick meals up and bring them up here and then distribute. Just another thought.
Okay.
We could help you. We've been in the transportation business. We can help, but I'm not sure that financially, it costs a lot more money to run a van than it does to buy one. So,
right.
What you're saying is what's about that.
Right.
But it may be an opportunity to help out your community. And maybe some people would like to do that. As a volunteer, I drove the Disabled American Veterans vans to the Sheridan Hospital for 3 years. There are people around that. The RSVP program had a volunteer driver program. They drove their own cars and took veterans places. And they got paid mileage, and then they got paid for lunch or something like that. Okay. So it's a possibility.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll have to search around the community. I'd like to see first if we can get a driver before we go off and buy vehicles, right? And so I think that we,
You can wait.
so, perfect. So I think what we'll probably do is maybe put out a Facebook post, see if anybody would be interested.
It's a public vehicle, and if you want to really give your carrier and your lawyer a coronary, you're putting a volunteer in a public vehicle.
But it would be registered to them and owned by them, right? Or
You would own it.
you would own it?
It's a grant.
Gotcha. I see where you, yeah.
Okay. So you don't want me to give you a heart attack is what you're.
No, I do not. I mean, for a charitable organization, it's different, but
How would that work then?
well, if you put a driver in a municipal vehicle, they're a servant to the town, and you know, they better be your employee, quite frankly.
Okay.
So he's saying it's a no-go.
Okay.
We do have we pay for Casper Link Assist,
Right.
but that comes out, I don't know how often that comes out. How much? Twice a week? So
They have some employees that
We would have to talk to Casper Assist about that one. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. So we'll have to touch base. Of course, apparently I've been cut off at the pass here, so I didn't even know that.
Set temporary.
But we'll have to talk to Casper Assist, and maybe they could put a driver on loan or something and see if that's something that we might could work that angle on. So
Sure.
appreciate it.
The other thing you could do is trade it on profit and have it own vehicles. So servicing.
I think Pat just wants to drive it. Look at him, he's over there.
Chassis.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You bet.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
You bet.
All right.
We could put sirens on it.
Yes. All right, on to our next item of business. It is what everyone is here for tonight, basically, and that is the letter of support request from Advanced Casper for the Business Ready Community Grant Program via the Wyoming Business Council. So with that, I will open it up to council for discussion. I suppose everyone has had an opportunity to read it.
Yeah, I read it. Yep, I read it. I wouldn't sign it. These people aren't, I'm not interested in signing it myself.
It's similar to what at the last regional meeting was proposed by Advanced Casper, and I was the only no vote on it at regional.
Not in this form, I wouldn't.
No, similar though.
In a form, possibly.
It only pertained to the water main because that's all regional had any interest in.
Okay, so I'm hearing that there's not, give me just a second, there's not a lot of interest in signing it in its current form. So, yeah. Justin, you approach the podium, please, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you, Justin Farley, 3511 Carmel. I used to own property in Barnum, but my ex-wife has that now, so that letter is simply meant as a template, just because we didn't want people to have to recreate it. It's been given in that form to many organizations. You can put your own flavor on that. Of course, you have to be attentive to your voters and it's best for Bardun, but that was just meant for you didn't have to create that letter on your. That's
okay. Well, I appreciate that.
You can make any changes that you see fit.
Okay. What are council's thoughts on that one?
Is this required?
No, it's not required. It's recommended, strongly encouraged, but not required. I mean, nothing is required, right? We could.
To advance the grant.
Yeah. As far as, Justin, is it required to advance the grant? As far as I know, this is just a letter of support, right?
It's just a letter of support. It just should, so Ventura County Casper, Mills, Evansville, just to show consolidation or show that the community is in support.
Okay.
Just, how many other letters have you acquired so far?
So the city of Casper, I just left there this evening. They're doing a resolution for that. The county is doing part of it because it is in county property. Mills has provided a letter. I'm not certain on Evansville, but I'm pretty sure because we basically duplicated the Mesa project for the same thing. And so they wrote a letter in that they've gone through this process and it was the benefit to their community. Joint Powers Board, of course, Advanced Casper, and then several industry, HICO, Copper Tank, Mesa. They've all written letters of support for the industry itself, for the project.
But not for the grant. Yes, no?
Well, it's part of the grant application, so yeah, indirectly.
Okay, thanks. What do you think? I'm leaving it open for you guys, because I mean, ultimately I have to put my signature on this, so I'm the one that gets, run out of town on a rail if I put my signature on it. But, I'm not gonna move forward without council's.
I've said it before, and I said it in the regional board meeting. The appetite for the whole state of Wyoming politics, we've seen a political shift. This is part of that political shift. The taxpayer money that comes through the Wyoming Business Council, the people are done with it. And I suspect with the budget session coming up, the Wyoming Business Council's high on the chopping block, just because of that aspect. So any letter from our town enhancing the profile of the Wyoming Business Council, I'll be a no vote.
Yeah, I already told my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, same.
I just don't feel it's right to promote one business over another by a town itself. We aren't here to promote businesses yay or nay necessarily, unless it's something especially that's out of our boundary. It's not even in our town. But, Casper, these other areas are supporting it. That's their business to do that. I have a hard time being new to all this. I have a hard time promoting a specific business, and in this letter promoting a grant for it as well. Now, I know there is grant money out there for businesses to be started. Everyone can utilize that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. That's a whole topic in and of itself.
Okay. Just a caution, and this is not me trying to shift opinions, just a caution that the Wyoming Business Council has a long memory. Just so everyone would know that they have a long memory.
That hasn't scared me before.
So just reminding you, just letting you know. Okay, Pat, do I need a resolution for any of this, or is this just nope? Okay, well, it sounds like council has made their mind, and I am duty bound to follow that as executor of the town. So I'm sorry, Justin, in its current form, it's a no-go. So, all right, business license, Kelly, I don't have a business license up here.
Bring in the back.
Don't just do it after the meeting's over. I would entertain a motion to approve the business license number 2025-26 DHH Services by S. Bokelman.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Give me,
You might have. Come on, it's the next thing on there.
I literally was gonna say something and you just.
Dang it.
All right, it's fine, whatever. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Everyone have a good night. Thank you for being here.
You guys did.